Hey, what's going on, Game Weepers? This is Iggs, and in today's video, we've got the updated tier list for patch 12.22. So we'll be revealing who the best champions are, the worst champions, all of those in between. So make sure you stick around for the whole video. Now let's jump into the top lane tier list. So starting off with the foremost broken top laners, we have Aatrox, Camille, Darius, and Fiora. Picking these champions in your games is your best bet of actually winning, because they are just so broken. Aatrox has continued from the end of season 12 into this preseason as being incredibly powerful, exactly the same with Darius. Camille and Fiora are a little bit different because they're really benefiting at the moment from the new Ravenous Hydra and the carnivorous stacking in the passive, so that's why those two are alongside Aatrox and Darius. Now, other champions who are very strong, pretty much every single champion here in S tier, and we do have some low-key good champions who should be played a lot more than they actually are in the top lane. So whether it's Akshan, because at the moment bruisers and fighters are really strong, like I said, because of Ravenous Hydra, and also some of them if they're going maybe Bork into Jackshow, or maybe they're even abusing the new Heartsteel item, so a champion like Set, for example, and then with Titanic Hydra, it's a deadly combination. So Akshan, because he's a ranged champion and does so well into so many of these champions, a bit like Cassiopeia and Vayne as well, there's just more HP in the top lane, so these champions become even better. Today's video is made possible by our sponsor Raid Shadow Legends. It is the hottest free-to-play game of all time, available not only on mobile, but on PC as well. Raid has millions of different champion combinations, so you will never get bored. And what you guys can do is use my QR code or links down below to download Raid yourself to your mobile phone or PC. Now let me quickly tell you about the High Elves faction. Their backstory is very intriguing. So their homeland, Aravia, has been around for thousands of years, surviving the fall of the Lizardman Empire. Now, High Elves helped the humans form into civilizations and defeated the Orcs when they formed a huge horde and attacked the continent. But then things got twisted because Siroth, the Lord of Darkness, convinced a bunch of elves to go evil and attack the kingdom. The civil war that ensued nearly ended the elves, but Aravia survived, got rebuilt, and now it's stronger than ever. And this month is huge for Raid because they just released a brand new faction, the Sylvan Watchers, with some amazing new champions, Forest Elves, Ents, Druids, Fays. They're all here, and I can't wait to try them out myself. Now there's also the new Forge Pass, which will give you access to some of the most powerful gear in the game, and by the way, if you're an Amazon Prime member, you get exclusive Raid rewards. Now all Gamely viewers, so all of you watching, you get a free starter pack worth almost $30 with a free champion, Aina, and all this cool in-game loot you will get as well, and you can find these in your inbox for the next 30 days only. So give Raid a shot for free. There's never been a better time to get started, so new players, use our link or scan the QR code right here on screen. Now, as far as the champions you probably shouldn't play, well, these reside in C tier. So a lot of these champions might be bursty champions. They don't have the most amazing DPS in the world. So champions like Akali and Kennen, for instance, or we might be talking about Yasuo and Yone, these two champions who just get out DPS by pretty much all those bruisers and fighters at the top of the tier list. And some of these champions, guys, across these tier lists in the C tier, I'd much rather you just play them in their better role. So a champion like Ryze, for instance, even Akali again, Sylas can be included here, same with Vladimir, Yasuo, Yone. Play these in the mid lane. You will have a much better chance of actually winning. And another theme for the top lane at the moment is that tanks, because so many top laners love to play against tanks and ruin them, are actually just really bad at the moment. So even if we think about Sion, right? Lots of people thought this champion was going to be super busted with Heartsteel and then Sunfire Rages, something like this because of all the HP you get. But think about top laners. Lots of them have HP percentage damage in their kit, right? Whether it's to do with Fiora with her vitals, Camille doing so much damage with her precision protocol, or a champion like Set, for example, with his ultimate. And that's also why some champions like Gwen is in low-key good, because she loves DPSing healthy targets exactly the same as Vayne as well. So that is the top lane tier list for 12.22. And guys, any comments, any questions on the tier list, let us know in the comment section. Now moving down to the jungle role, we have four most broken champions just like top lane, these being Bel'Veth, who hasn't moved for like the last 10 patches. Then we have Echo, Evelynn, and Graves. Now Echo and Evelynn are kind of new inclusions here. The reason these are so good is because, well, full clearing, which is kind of becoming the jungle meta, this is what these champions excel at, and this is what they want to do. They just want a nice easy early game so they can try to hit level 4 off a full clear free of charge, and then after that level 6 is kind of just around the corner, and when they hit this they are sweet. So for these two champions, especially in higher elos, to have over like 53% win rates, that speaks volumes to how good they are in the new jungle meta. Now Graves is still one of the strongest champions, particularly if you're going Gore Drinker, and there is some tech out there where you can rush Ravenous Hydra into Gore Drinker and then Black Cleaver. This gives you so much Omnivamp, it gives you so much damage, even more clear speed than what you already have, so that's a very interesting setup as well. Now as far as S tier junglers go, kind of like the only one I want to mention here is actually Dr. Mundo, who is the quickest full clear in the game at the moment. So if you want to clear all 6 camps and hit level 4 by around 245, 250, Dr. Mundo is actually the quickest at doing this. Now this doesn't just make him outright broken though, this makes him very good. I still think he's lacking a little bit in terms of a champion and maybe in the jungle as well, but that is kind of a nice bonus at the moment because you outclear everybody and you can get to the first Scuttle Crab with a base as well. So you can recall, get boots, maybe a ruby crystal, something like this, and have a big item advantage for that initial Scuttle Crab fight. Now, if we just look at Loki good for a second, we have Kha'Zix, we have Nocturne, we have Nunu, and for the first two, Kha'Zix and Nocturne, Ravenous Hydra. Again, that tech is hitting these champions as well. So rushing this item is actually giving these champions not only a lot of wave clear, but also damage, so think about doing that if you're playing either of these two. And Nunu is here because of Jack's show. So this mythic item that got Halt Fix buffed, it makes him so difficult to kill, and you will still have enough damage if you do land some sort of snowball or your ultimate, of course, so Nunu is also in low-key good. Now, other champions in the jungle, guys, if we just look at B tier for a second, we have Gwen, who is back really because of the Krug change, and I talked about her a couple of days ago in our low-key broken champions video. Then we also have Sylas here as well, but like the top lane tier list, I'd recommend playing Sylas in the mid lane into a favorable matchup. Picking him in the jungle, of course you can, especially if the enemy team has already shown that they have a lot of ultimates that will be good for you, but he is very vulnerable in the early game. So if you're against a very strong level 1, level 2, level 3 champion, especially if they're a red buff type champion, so something maybe like a Kindred or a Graze, do be careful. And as far as the C tier junglers go, guys, kind of like I was mentioning for top lane, right? Champions with HP, so Maokai and Zac, are just worse off. They get shredded so easily, even in the jungle, so do be careful about picking these. And these other champions, particularly Pantheon, who you should really be playing in the top lane, Kiana in the mid lane, Talia in the mid lane, Talon in the mid lane, maybe even Viego in the mid lane is better than he is at the moment. In the jungle, again, they're probably better off in other roles. And as far as trash can, please do not pick Camille. I've seen some people play it in my solo queue games, so please do not copy them. Now, as far as the mid lane tier list goes in broken, I know some people are going to be raising their eyebrows at this, but Corki is the first champion here. Now, the reason Corki is here is because of Ravenous Hydra. Now, I know that in tier list, right, he's probably classified as like B tier on the website, but let me just put it this way, guys. This champion has always had a pretty low win rate, around like 46, 45 maybe even percent. So the fact that the Corkster almost has like a 50% win rate now, well, that's all thanks to Ravenous Hydra. And once you get Mirror Mana with Ravenous Hydra and then Sork Shoes, the damage you deal in the mid game, it is insane. Now, in terms of the laning phase, of course, you have to be a little bit careful because that is when you can kind of get stomped on. But if you can navigate your way out of the laning phase, honestly, might even be the best mid to late game champion in the game at the moment. Now, Syndra is here because of all the changes. Nothing has really affected her in the mid lane. Still incredibly strong, exactly the same as Zed as well. Thanks to all those sustain nerfs and the Scorch buff in 12-14, and of course the buff to his Shadow Slash, Zed has to be in broken. Now, there aren't many champions in S tier. You can see compared to the other roles, there's only 8 here. So Arya, Akali, Akshan, Anivia, Aurelia, Sylas, Vex, and Victor. These are the best of the rest. And as far as low-key good, we have a bunch of champions here and a lot of AD champions. So we have Gangplank, Lucian, Pantheon. The reason I put these here is because of the jungle tier list. If we think about who was OP, we had Echo and then we had Evelynn. AP junglers are kind of making like a mini revival in a sense, and when you have an AD mid laner, because you have mixed damage, it's very actually hard to build against for enemy mid laners, enemy junglers, right? So if you have a Pantheon mid and then an Echo jungle, I'm sure you guys can imagine just how scary that would be to play against. We also have Ryze and Talia, who I both detailed in our previous video, and then we have Twisted Fate with the new Roa, and Zoe because she can pressure so many of these OP champions. She does incredibly well during lane, so that's why she's here as well. Just be very careful about picking these 3 champions in C tier: Azir, Kiana, and Varus. These champions have taken a massive hit. I mean, Varus, you're probably going to play him as an AD carry, and I'd highly recommend doing so. That's by far his best role. But for Azir and Kiana, in terms of solo queue, these champions are just really underperforming at the moment. And as far as trash can goes, please, if you're going to play Cassandre, play him in the top lane. Now, heading down to the bot lane, guys, the 2 most broken AD carries in the game, these are Caitlyn and Lucian. Now, for Caitlyn, honestly, she's probably number 1, simply because, well, she's incredibly difficult to beat in lane. Like, if the player knows how to position and space, I mean, that's probably asking a lot for a lot of elos, she is the most oppressive AD carry. And once you do get out of laning phase with a lead, it's very hard to stop you. And that kind of goes for Lucian as well, because Lucian with this Burst Strike tech and then Gale Force and Lucidity boots, heading into like Rapid Fire Cannon, you deal a great amount of damage, and the amount of ability haste you have, you get off your cooldown so quickly, so you can really utilize your passive. And if you can play Lucian with Nami as your support, that combination is still one of the strongest on the Rift in the bot lane. Now, as far as S tier champions go, we have a few champions here. So we have Ashe, Draven, Jhin, Kai'Sa, Samira, and Twitch. These champions are just performing statistically very well, so it's impossible for me not to put them in this tier. Now, as far as low-key good champions, we talked about Xayah, and we also talked about Ziggs in our previous video, so make sure you guys check out that for all the runes, the builds, etc, etc. And we also have Yasuo here, because Yasuo, well, he's just a big cuck in the bot lane to a lot of champions, particularly if you're against a double range bot lane, because his wind wall, well, it's just very hard to play against, right? And because of his mobility with his E. So do watch out for Yasuo Yasuo if he's heading down to the bot lane. Now, as far as the rest of the AD carries go, Ezreal has actually moved up to B tier from C tier, and that's because if you're going Ravenous Hydra, I know some people are going Frostfire Gauntlet out there, but honestly, Ravenous Hydra just makes Ezreal better. Not OP, just a bit more viable. And as far as C tier champions go, if you're playing a Feli or Sivir Vayne, statistically speaking, these champions are some of the worst, but nowhere near as bad as Zeri. So if you are an AD carry, guys, please just wait until she gets buffed. She is in trash can tier. Now, the final role, of course, is the support role, and if you guys want these videos for the preseason to continue, let us know by leaving a like down below. And the four most broken supports for 12-22, Janna, Nami, Renata, Soraka. Now, these four champions have the most insane win rates out of any champion on the Rift, so we're not even talking about supports. We're talking around 53-54% win rates, and that's in the majority of elos. So even if I wanted to argue against these champions being unbroken, like, I just cannot not put them in here. And just beneath them, we have a lot of supports who can empower their allies as well. So if we think about those broken supports, if we think about maybe Karma, Lulu, Sona, Zillion, these supports who can empower them even more are relishing the preseason. Now, as far as low-key good champions go, Ashe, we talked about in our previous video, but we also have Twitch here. And Twitch, if you're going AP Twitch, for some reason, this champion just has a very good win rate. He's actually classified as A tier on a lot of the stats websites. So we might have to indulge ourselves a little bit more if this is actually real, but according to the stats, he is low-key good. Just be very careful, guys, about picking Senna and then Set as well. I know Set's face break of the slow got increased to 70%, but again, I'm just referring to the statistics here. He isn't doing very well, and he's much better picked in the top lane with Heartsteel, Titanic Hydra abusing that tech. And Senna is a little surprising here because she does very well against lots of the supports who are very strong. So Janna, Nami, Renata, Soraka, Lulu, Sona, Senna does very well into, but she's not going to really empower her allies as much as these other champions, and because jungle is such an OP role as well, you're so easy to kill, you're not really bringing that much to the party anymore. So those were the tier lists, guys, for 12-22. Again, any questions, let us know down below, and until our next preseason upload, this has been Peace.